Hi, and thank you so much for purchasing a 4th Street Creative template. This is the video walkthrough for the Kensington Property Sheet. When you get the link, you'll be directed to a page that looks like this, and you just hit Use Template to bring it into your own Canva account. And when you're here, I would highly suggest that you head over to File and make a copy, and that way, if you do make a few left turns or you just can't remember how the design looked like after you've been editing it for a bit and you want to start from scratch, you have that master file available for you to always fall back on just in case you want to start from scratch. So now once you've done that, you can head over to Uploads and upload an image or video. And this is where you're going to locate your own property photos and upload them into Canva. And when you do, it will look like this. And now you're ready to just plug and play all of your listing photos. So the first thing to note is that there are a couple overlays in this template. The first one is on the front page over the entire image, and the second one is on this banner image here. So in order to access the photo behind the overlay, you just grab the overlay, move it over slightly, and then click on the image behind it, and that's how you access it. And you're going to grab an image that you like for your cover, and then just hover over and it will snap into place. If you're not happy with the positioning of the image, just double click, and within the photo box you can move it around. And when you're satisfied with how it looks, take your overlay and drag it back into place. Now, if you want to change the color of this overlay because you think it's too dark, you can either go to the color box and make it your own brand colors. So if your brand color is blue, you can make it blue, make it orange, green, or your own custom hex code here. For the purpose of this tutorial, we're going to keep it black, but there is another option. If you think it's a little bit too dark and you'd like to lighten it up, you can head over to the Transparency tab here and then just play around with the transparency. So if you make it too light, if you reduce the opacity by too much, then it's hard to read the property address. So once you bring it up, I think I had it around 60. So if you think that's too dark, maybe you want to try 50 or 40. And that looks about right. That looks okay. So if you're happy with that, that's another way to brighten the design or to see more of the image behind it. For the purpose of this tutorial, I'm going to leave it up just because I like that look. Okay, now for font, you can obviously change this out you can change the information to suit your own property address. And when you're done that, you can also change the fonts to your own brand fonts or something that you'd like to use for this listing. And you do that by highlighting the text box, heading over to the font tab, and Canva has a lot of free fonts, and if you have the Pro version, there's even more fonts for the Pro version. This is the URL for the property, but if you don't have one, you can use your business website or your brokerage website. On to the second page. Oh, another thing to note too is that this can be changed. You can change the color of this as well. So this is a great way to just add some brand dimensions. So if you do have brand colors but you don't want to change the overlay back here to your brand color, you can use this box. So if your brand is blue, for example, you could make a blue box rather than change the entire thing. So you can just play around with that, see what looks best. When you're happy with that, move on to the second page. Again, there is an overlay on this banner, so I'm going to move it slightly, make sure the image box behind it is highlighted, and drop a photo in place. It's popped into place, but I'm not happy with the way that it's sitting, so I'm going to double click it and bring it up a bit so we can see the bottom of that room. Then when you're happy, move the overlay back over. And this is where you change your information here. Again, you can change the text or color on this one as well. And if you have a property address that's too large or small, meaning too many letters or too few letters, one way you can adjust this without adjusting the font size is to head over to the spacing tab and play around with the spacing. So what this does is remove space or add space in between letters. And this is a great way to fill out a page or to make text fit onto a page without compromising the readability. It's not spelled right. There we go. Okay. Once you're happy with that, you can move on to changing all this information. So you can either keep this as is and use it as is, just as a plug and play template, Or you can actually change this to suit your needs by deleting this box entirely, for example, and making this entire area a text area to give a write-up of your property. But for the purpose of this tutorial, I'm going to keep it like this. And the details obviously is the details of the house or property with the sizing. The extras, it's the extras that are included. Options to change here would be information about the area, information about the building, aka the amenities, or things that maybe are excluded. You could put that here as well. You change these to match to your needs. I don't like the way that's sitting, so I'm going to move it. Now onto the agent banner itself. So this is set up so that you can put your brokerage icon in here, you can change the information, and you can just put your name here. So this can be a really easy plug and play. But if you're not happy with the way that it looks, this image can be deleted. You just make sure it's highlighted, you delete it completely, and that just gives you a solid text box to work with. Sorry about that, that was the wrong color. So here we go. Just make that the right color. So once you've deleted that image over the color block behind it, now you can change this color to suit your needs completely. So if you have a gray brand, orange, pink, brown, you can change it to whatever you'd like. And if you have an image, let me head over to this guy. If you can upload your own headshot up into this template, click once to bring it into the design, and then put it onto the banner, and then you can adjust the sizing from there. Okay, so I'm going to click my mouse once, hold shift on my keyboard, click this box with it, and once I've done that, this creates a group. So I'm going to move this whole thing over. Okay, so again, what I did was I clicked my mouse to select Peter King, then I'm going to hold shift and click again, and if I do that, it creates a group. So I don't have to move them individually, I can move them together wherever I'd like. That looks good to me. I'm going to leave that. You also have the option of not putting in this logo at all if you're allowed to do that, if your brokerage allows, and you can just write out the name itself to keep it looking as streamlined as possible. So that's what I'm going to do for this particular design because it's starting to look a little bit crowded. I'm going to move this guy over, and instead of his URL, I would put real estate company, and then because it's leaking off of the page now, I'm going to adjust the spacing. I'm going to bring it in a bit, and I would highly recommend not going below 10 because it's difficult to read. So if anything, right now I'm just going to play around with the spacing to make sure that everything fits. And that looks great. Okay, so once you're happy with the way that everything looks, you head over to File, Show Print Bleed, and this dotted line is where your printer is going to be cutting the document. So you want to make sure that everything is brought to the edge. So here, the image is not brought to the edge. Let's make sure that everything bleeds out to the edge so that you don't get any white marks on your page when it's printed for you. So everything else looks pretty good. This Peter needs to move down a little bit. Otherwise you might see that space. If you leave it here, you might see that space under him. So you want him to bleed off the page. Okay. Everything looks good. One last check. Great. Now you head over to this tab here, the download tab, and you want to select PDF print. And if you are having this professionally printed, you're going to hit crop marks and bleed. You're going to make sure this is checked. But if you're printing this at home, you don't need to check that box. So I'm going to assume that you're having it professionally printed, and then I'm going to hit download and show you what it looks like once the file has been saved. So once I open up that file, you can see that the crop marks are indeed right. Nothing's being cut off. What you want to look for when you open up this document after you've saved it is to make sure that no text is close to these lines. So the amount of space that's here, you want to double that on this side. Visually, just imagine this space between the white border. Imagine twice that size on this side of the crop mark. And if your text is falling within that, it's too close. So you don't want to run the risk of any text being cut off, and that's a good rule of thumb. To double, this is 1/8 of an inch about, and you want to double that on this side of the crop mark right here. And that's visually how you would look to make sure that your file is ready for print. And if everything looks okay and nothing looks like it's going to be cut off, then you are good to send this to the printer. I hope that that was helpful. If you need any more help, please head over to foreststreetcreative.com/tutorials for our full resource library of walkthroughs and helpful tips and tricks. Happy designing!